The now experienced crew of USS SLATER DE-766 continue their second convoy to England this week. Last week, a storm made rough sailing for convoy CU-48. At 0400 on the 28th, SLATER fell in behind the convoy to assist the merchant vessel SS Thompson Lykes, which was dead in the water due to engine troubles. About an hour later, she was able to get underway at a blistering 7 knots. Eventually, 14 knots was able to be achieved. At 0835, the Thompson Lykes had another power failure, and SLATER began a circular patrol around the vessel, her sonarmen keeping a close ear for any possible U-boats. Both ships were able to get underway shortly thereafter, and proceed to close the gap between them and the convoy. All the while, SLATER was rolling moderately, with some sprays over the forecastle. As they sailed into the night, 3.5 miles separated them from the rest of the convoy. By 0310 on the 29th, both SLATER and the Thompson Lykes had rejoined the convoy. Just after 0800, SLATER lost her steering. After steering, immediately took control of the ship. Fortunately, SLATER's crew had been practicing steering casualty drills since the ship first went to sea back in May. After about 30 minutes, normal steering in the pilot house was restored. And on this date, Seaman First Class Brown, Seaman Second Class Percy, and Seaman First Class Lay were all on the sick list. At 1630, what resembled the top of a ship's mast passed close aboard, partially submerged. But it does not seem to have been a concern for anybody in the convoy. The next morning, only Percy remained on the sick list. The weather was fair, but with a moderate wind and slight swells. A surprise 45-degree turn to port and then to starboard for the entire convoy was ordered by the escort commander in USS Somers, DD-381. As her crew closed their eyes that night, a slight roll of the ship drifted them away to dreams of home. When they woke the next morning, the calendar had turned to December. Percy must have felt better this date, and he was no longer on the sick list. At 12:05, the flooding lights were tested and found to be working just fine. That evening, a surprise rain squall appeared, causing frequent sprays to break over the forecastle. USS Poole, DE-151, momentarily left the convoy to investigate sound contacts, but returned after classifying them as non-sub. Percy was returned to the sick list on the 2nd of December. The OTC in Somers ordered SLATER to close in to receive new orders. Heavy seas were causing the little destroyer escort to roll rather heavily. SLATER's new mission was to stand by the escort carrier HMS Reaper, CVE-54, and act as a sort of mother duck to her duckling. Reaper had been forced to adjust her course due to seas causing her to roll a little bit too much. All the while, SLATER stood by her duckling to render any assistance that they may need. The remainder of the convoy split up as they neared the mainland. The English Channel section consisted of 11 ships in 3 columns: USS Peterson, DE-152, USS Burroughs, DE-105, USS Oswald, DE-767, USS Ebert, DE-768, and Poole comprised the escorts. The Irish Sea section consisted of 19 merchant vessels in 5 columns. Escorted by Somers, USS Harvison, DE-316, USS Kirkpatrick, DE-318, and USS Joyce, DE-317. Slater and Reaper were also assigned to the Irish Sea section. The rough seas continued into the next day. All day, Slater remained with Reaper until she was able to make a course change to 80 degrees true and increase her speed to 13 knots. Slater changed her position to 3,000 yards ahead of the carrier. Oswald obtained a sonar contact at 2320 as part of the English Channel section. She attacked with 7 depth charges, but later classified her contact as non-sub. On the final day of the week, Seaman Second Class Turner was added to the sick list. General quarters at 10:30 for an anti-aircraft firing drill. That afternoon, General quarters was piped again for a sound contact.
GQ, General Quarters for battle practice. All hands, man your battle stations.
The Foxer gear was streamed, and 3 patterns of hedgehogs were fired, and a single depth charge pattern dropped. An hour and a half later, the Foxer gear was retrieved, and Slater's crew secured from general quarters. She then proceeded at 18 knots to overtake Reaper and return to her position 3,000 yards ahead. Elsewhere, Peterson broke away from the English Channel section to escort the merchant vessel SS Tampico to Cherbourg, France. We're often asked if Slater ever sunk a submarine, and the answer has always been no. But some of her crew have said they had strong contacts during their convoys, and a few have claimed they sunk a U-boat, but were never able to confirm it. It is possible the contact they fired upon on the 4th of December was U-1202. According to U-BoatNet, U-1202 was about 200 miles east of Slater's location that date, and had been for a few days. Or it's possible that there was a U-boat whose records we just don't have. Could it have been a non-sub contact, like the ones these ships dealt with all the time? Sure. But typically, just a few depth charges or hedgehogs would be used. Slater's crew fired 2 full salvos of hedgehogs and a full salvo of depth charges. They must have felt they had a pretty strong contact. And there we have another week in the books. Stay tuned as the Slater crew of World War II and her museum crew of 2022 head into the cold, dark winter. The museum may be closed for the next 4 months, but you are still able to make some last-minute purchases through our online gift shop at ussslater.org. While there, you can also become a member for $25 and donate to our winter fund to keep the heat on this winter.